Hey, independent-minded critical thinkers. Thanks for joining us again on SGT Report. On the line right now, our good friend and longtime contributor, Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin. Andy, welcome back.
Since yesterday, and for all the listeners, we had to retape yesterday's podcast, so we're doing the same thing twice, and we're going to try to make it better than the first one.
So now you're airing our dirty laundry. I thought that was our secret. We're going to keep it.
I just want everyone to know that I'm doing it twice, and so are you. So we're going to kick some butt here.
All right. Andy loves you guys so much. He's willing to come back on and do this again. And not a lot has changed since we did this yesterday, Andy. But I'll tell you, we spoke earlier in the week with Mark O'Byrne of Goldcore. And one of the things I want to throw at you is something I mentioned to him, and it's a crazy statistic regarding Bitcoin. If we're to surmise and believe the statistics coming out of people like Eric Sprott, your research, and others, that there's approximately 1 billion ounces of physical silver on planet Earth, which at today's silver price would equate to about a total market value of around $22 billion. Meanwhile, Forbes reported more than a week ago that the total outstanding value of all Bitcoins is already $5 billion. Does that not speak to the fact that silver is dramatically underpriced? If Bitcoin at $1,000 is possible, certainly silver, were it not manipulated, could be worth $1,000.
Yeah, as I wrote in my piece, Cashless Society, Friday, look, it's a new technology that is becoming popular because people are trying to think of new ways to get out of the system and away from the fiat currencies. That said, what we're seeing in Bitcoin right now is a speculative mania. We're seeing venture capital fly into this to create computers, and it's the way I equate it. When people say there are mining costs, I remember this is all other people's money, and there may be mining costs involved, but they're not even close to the amount for gold. And of course, like an Easter egg hunt when you're a child, you will find the Bitcoins. I mean, it's not like when you explore for gold and silver, you may or may not find anything that's economic. You're going to find them if you put the resources into it. So as far as I'm concerned, the fact that the price of Bitcoin is almost at the price of an ounce of gold shows you that while the technology may be interesting, it is becoming a mania. And, we talk about, the Chinese, for instance, just made this incredible announcement, which, of course, was ignored by everyone, that they no longer want to acquire currency reserves. I mean, that is probably the most bullish thing I've heard for precious metals in my entire 12 years of watching this. They have $3.6 trillion of currency reserves, and they are building them at a rate of $200 billion per quarter right now, and they want out. There's only about $100 billion worth of gold mined in a single year worldwide, and 15 billion of silver. So the point is that these gold and silver are way undervalued compared to the amount of buying that's going to be coming into them.
Yeah, and Andy, when we talk about $1,000 an ounce silver, don't laugh, because my point is this. The last time I checked, Bitcoin is not being used in any industrial capacity whatsoever. We don't rely on Bitcoin for solar panels. We don't rely on Bitcoin to make computer keyboards or circuitry. We don't rely on Bitcoin in medicines, in clothing, in antibacterial applications. You wrote in Cashless Society, and I think you nailed it, you wrote that the recent rise in Bitcoin prices amidst a backdrop of money printing gone mad should be a wake-up call to billions that mistrust of global central bankers is going mainstream. I don't think any more truer words have been written regarding Bitcoin than that, because you call it a mania. Maybe it's just a changing paradigm.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the technology, the fact that people are looking for alternative currencies is a viable concept. But to believe that all of a sudden Bitcoins are invaluable, it's like tulips. I mean, Peter Schiff put out a great video this weekend called Bitcoin versus Gold. And what he's showing is that it doesn't have intrinsic value, Bitcoins, whereas silver, for instance, it's the second most used commodity on Earth. In fact, 3/4 of all the production is used for things other than investment. Although, of course, it's investment that's made the price move over the past 12 years or so. I mean, when you talk about Bitcoin, you're simply talking about a market. It's an investment right now. And when you talk about gold and silver, you are talking about money.
Now, before we move on, Andy, let's give credit where credit is due. Guys like Liberty Blitzkrieg's Mike Krieger and Jeff Berwick, Dollar Vigilante, Many others have been talking about Bitcoin for a very long time, and I guess we all could have gotten in about a year ago at 9. I don't think there's maybe a better example of a bubble again. You called it a mania. I think you're right in this case. But credit where credit's due to those that were suggesting that people diversify with a little Bitcoin about a year ago. Didn't you just talk to Mike Krieger recently about this?
Yeah, we had dinner the other night. He lives here in Colorado. No, he's a very forward-looking person, and has said to people, it's a matter of diversifying your alternative currencies portfolio. As for me, I'm pretty diehard in my belief that I don't want to invest in anything right now. I simply hold my savings in physical gold and silver. The more that I see what's going on in the world each day, the more fearful I am that the powers that be will debauch whatever it is that it's created out of thin air. And they certainly can do things to Bitcoin as well. I mean, it's a great technology, but it's far from perfect. And right now, it's still dependent on the internet, although they're trying to create these wallets that you could hold outside the internet. But again, this is all just technology that's nascent, and most of the people that are quote buying Bitcoin are simply speculating in it. And I'm not sure what it's ultimately worth. I'm not judging that. I'm simply saying that it's my business to protect people, and Bitcoin doesn't compete with gold and silver. Although some people might say that I'm sour grapes about it. No, I simply am saying that this is an investment that you need to be very careful about looking at, and the fact that it's becoming popular should, as you said, as I wrote, be a wake up call to many that it's becoming mainstream to be fearful of fiat currency.
Well, we can move on from the Bitcoin topic, but I just do want to impress on everybody, and I know everybody listening knows this, unless you're new to our material, that silver in physical form is so doggone precious and so truly rare and so difficult to mine and so difficult to pull from the ground. It's just so precious, Andy, that it warrants saying again that if Bitcoin can reach 1,000, don't laugh. Silver is certainly worth 1,000 an ounce, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, my long-standing, let's call it price target, and I don't mean something that it should go to one day. I mean, if it weren't rigged, I would say it should be $1,000 to $4,000 an ounce now, and that's simply using the math of how much money the government says has been published, and how much gold they say they have in reserve. And of course, they print a lot more than they say, and they have a lot less gold than they say. And using that, you come up to $15,000 to $20,000 an ounce gold, which is the same calculation that came up to $900 an ounce gold in 1980. And and I believe that the gold silver ratio should fall. It's closer to its 15 to 1 long historical average, if not lower, which gets you to $1,000 plus silver. And this is just simple math. This is not me being saying, well, I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million. I'm just saying this is the math that says it. And as far as you mentioned, how scarce it is. Look, the paper price may be down right now, but the premiums have expanded in the past couple of weeks. In the United States, they certainly have. I mean, the price of a silver eagle is still spot plus the same amount as it was a couple of weeks ago when the price was $2 higher. I just read this weekend, Andrew McGuire said that in China, silver closed at spot plus $1.15. It never fell below $21 in China. And of course, I'm not sure what the premiums are in India, but I know the gold premiums in India are 22% right now. So for silver, I'm sure they're high too. So, around the world, there's a very different price level for silver than there is here in the States.
Well, getting back to this idea, Andy, that there's a now global mistrust of this central banking scheme going on, which is causing people to run into alternative currencies and run from these fiat currencies. Let me revisit an article that you wrote back on September 11th called Real Unemployment, Inflation, and GDP Are at Recessionary Levels at Best. Andy, the reports coming out of this government continue to say that unemployment is on the decline and the economy is rebounding. Is there anything in these reports anymore that we can believe? Or has this current administration and this current government been caught with its pants down one too many times?
Well, I mean, just last week we had an actual whistleblower come out and say the October 2012 NFP payroll report was a complete sham.
That's
I
right.
think everyone knew that. When Jack Welch put his now famous comment about cooking the books, it was pretty obvious when the unemployment report magically fell just enough to get it below where Obama started out in 2008, just in time for the election. I think it was pretty obvious. And of course, that report included a major drop in the labor participation rate, as we've seen for years now. And again, the government may say that, quote, the unemployment is doing better, but real unemployment, as in the household survey, as in the JOLT survey, as in, of course, the labor participation rate, says otherwise. I mean, this is not stuff you have to find like a Bitcoin algorithm. The NFP report himself says the labor participation rate is at a 35-year low. And it also says that the jobs that are there are part-time jobs, retail jobs, minimum wage paying jobs, temp help jobs. I think one of the largest employers in the nation now is a temp agency. I forgot which one it is, Manpower or one of those. So I mean, they could say all they want, things are getting better, but it's very transparent that they're not. And if things were so good, why is Obama talking about extending unemployment benefits beyond 99 weeks this month?
Yeah, it's clear that the economy, I think, is structurally broken. I mean, if you're out there looking for a real job, if you're looking for a job that will allow you to support a family, good luck to you. And there's a lot of folks out there, as you know, Andy, that are working multiple jobs to try to bring in enough income. Now, add to that this backdrop of Obamacare, where people are now in the position of being canceled by their insurance companies. I want to talk to you just a little bit about Obamacare to get your opinion, because it seems to me that there is no better example than the authoritarian, totalitarian tiptoe than Obamacare, as the pretense was we're going to get everybody covered. And the reality is that good people that had health insurance in the free market are now being canceled. And those people are finding out that to replace the insurance they had, they're going to have to pay double or triple. And I think the end result is going to be, Andy, and maybe this is all by design, that fewer people are going to have health insurance and more people, as a result of this debacle, are going to die, are going to be in dire straits. What's your take on what we're seeing with Obamacare?
Well, just to finish on employment supposedly improving. Look, again, it comes down to the last remaining tools of money printing, market manipulation, and propaganda. The fact that they say that employment is improving and the stock market is going up doesn't mean employment is improving. Increasingly, I just wrote a piece about how the mainstream is starting to report reality a bit. You're seeing Yahoo Finance and Reuters and Bloomberg. I mean, at some point, the cheerleading doesn't work anymore. It's silly. You can come out and say that unemployment rate is down to nothing. But keep in mind, the unemployment rate, as they define it, could go down to 5% or 4% without a single job being created because the labor participation rate goes down. So I think people shouldn't get too excited about any of those numbers because have become completely meaningless. And when it comes to Obamacare, look, I mean, there are many different ways of looking at it. To me, it's just the natural progression of a society in decline, of a power in decline. People lose their jobs, and then they resort to totalitarianism and socialism because they have more control over the people this way. That's why you have half the people in the nation on entitlements right now. Obamacare is just another way of exerting control over the population. And of course, the biggest result is going to be that we are taxed. I've said it a million times that if we're going to be the social states of America, we will be taxed as such. This is not something that's a new concept. In Canada, in all of Europe, they pay 50% federal tax rates. I mean, that's what's going to happen here. And that's another reason why I tell people to get out of their IRAs because the higher the rates go, the less they're worth. Obamacare is going to prove. I mean, let me back up. If all the surveys that they did before Obamacare showed that the United States had the best health care in the world as far as the number of doctors, the cost, the time you would wait for procedures. And now we've decided we are going to fall down to everyone else's level. So we will have much more expensive and much worse healthcare. And as you said, there probably will be a lot of people who deserve it and are going to not be able to afford it.
Andy, you've been my precious metals guy for a very long time. We've been chatting about this stuff for better than 2 years. And I wanted to ask you this. If we get back to silver, what are you seeing in terms of real world demand for silver and gold in physical form? Because I think what we're seeing out of the U.S. Mint is just nonstop record months. And somebody's buying this stuff. At the end of the day, we all know that the Federal Reserve Ponzi scheme of endless printing, it literally can't go on forever. And one day the end will come. So two-part question. What are you seeing in terms of real-world physical demand? And the second part of the question is, are you surprised that they've been able to keep this thing stitched together for as long as they have? Because I know I am.
Well, I'll start with the second part. Of course, I am. It's remarkable to me how 5 years after the financial crisis, the world could have dramatically more debt. We've had currency crashes around the world, the fragile five among others. We've had because of the exported inflation from all the money printing. We've seen QE go pretty much exponential in Japan, here, and soon to be in Europe. Actually, in Europe they have covert QE right now through the loan guarantees that the ECB gives to the sovereign nations. Plus, we have the Fed swap agreements. But the fact is, around the world, you're starting to see all the money printing take off. All of the economies of the world, of the main economies of the world, are in much worse condition than they were 5 years ago. The debt levels are much higher. The political strife, the social unrest, and yet they've been able to keep things going. And a big part of that, of course, has been their ability to keep markets higher and keep gold and silver lower. And you ask what we see in the real world. Look, I mean, Miles Franklin has worked their butt off this year to remain visible. So I think our market share is probably a little higher than it was. But that said, for the United States bullion industry as a whole, it's been an abysmal year, which shows you the anomaly. When you look at the U.S. Mint sales now, the gold sales have had some of their, I think January and April were two of their biggest months ever. However, it hasn't been a record year for gold sales from the Mint. On the other hand, silver has been by far the biggest year ever for the U.S. Mint, which is quite an interesting scenario. After 9 months, we've had more buying than the record year of 2011, which is crazy because 2011 first silver went to $50 an ounce and the industry sold out, and then you had the whole crisis in the summertime and gold went almost to 2000. And yet, through the first 9 months of 2013, we've had more silver eagles sold by the mint than in all of 2011 combined. And all I can tell you from what I see in our business is that there's no doubt in my mind that that's the Easterners that are buying it. That's the Chinese, Indians, Russians, you name it, Arabs. It's certainly not the Americans that have been buying it. And again, it's a tale of two cities when you talk about global demand. I mean, you can have all the propaganda here saying how the business is dead here and it's going to nothing. But if we were doing business in China, and I can tell you this because I was in China in August and I saw all the shops teeming with people, this would be a record year across the board. I mean, Chinese imports of gold are doubling last year's record amount. And we are seeing just astounding levels of physical demand around the world, just not here in the States. And at some point, it'll catch on again. Remember, this year alone, we've had several shortages of silver. We had to close the mint in January, and then in April, we had at Miles Franklin. April was our best month ever after they smashed the prices. So things can turn on a dime here in the States, and my guess is they're going to soon at these prices. And remember, this week is the biggest COMEX options expiration of the year. There's something like 12 million gold ounces that are still open interest for delivery, and there's only 500,000 ounces in inventory.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting to keep your eye on the COMEX. Now, let's see, when did it happen? A week or two ago, the COMEX halted gold trading twice in one day after a $200 million sell trade, which, after talking to our buddy Mark O'Byrne over there at Goldcore, he made it real clear to us that was paper, that was not physical. I think you've made the same point, Andy, but keeping the eye on the shenanigans at the COMEX is certainly key to understanding the real story, right?
Yeah, they call it a stop logic event. They actually have a name for it at the CME, or the group that owns the COMEX, which means that someone decided to take out the entire bid stack, just hit every single bid that's there, and that's why, not uncoincidentally, the day of the FOMC minutes, which I wrote my piece the other day, the ultimate key attack event, because now they attack gold every single time those dumb minutes come out, those useless minutes that say what they said in the meeting a month ago, even though just 2 days ago, both Bernie and Janet Yellen came out and said we're going to keep going with QE ad infinitum, and so did pretty much the rest of the Fed presidents. But yeah, these stop logic events mean someone wanted to push the price down. They did it before the FOMC minutes, and they did it after the FOMC minutes, and it actually caused the market to be shut down temporarily. It's now happened 4 times in the last 3 months, because this has been the most maniacal, terrifying desperation attacks on gold and silver that I've seen in my 12 years. And as a result, we're now trading at prices way below the cost of production for both metals. So something is going to give here soon.
Yeah, something's going to give soon, and that warrants mentioning that the costs of production are much higher than the metals are currently priced at, silver in particular. And I know we're beating this to death, but it warrants saying $1,000 silver, don't laugh. Here's what kills me. I've often said, if we want to wrap this up talking about Bitcoin, Andy, I've often said now that Bitcoin and this rising out of control price in Bitcoin, it's an open wound, insert salt event for those of us that have been honorably purchasing physical precious metals because A, we believe in the monetary history of the metals, and B, we recognize the real world value of these metals. The other salt in the wound, Andy, is that every single time these criminals talk about tapering, let's look at the FOMC minutes because tapering is probably right around the corner. The metals get hammered, and it doesn't matter that the reality is that they've already printed trillions and trillions and intend to print trillions and trillions more. So, Andy, what is your take on all this talk that, oh, now tapering, this is the real deal, guys. Now they're really going to start tapering shortly.
Well, look, I've been one of the few people all along that has said they can never taper. I said it in September, I said it before that, and I'm saying it now because because when they're the only buyers out there of treasuries, who else is going to buy them? The Chinese are not only the Chinese have they stopped buying this year, they started selling in the middle of this year, but now they don't want currency reserves anymore, so they're going to be wanting to sell all of their dollar-based products. And don't forget, we still have to deal with. You remember the big reason why they said they didn't taper in September was the whole government shutdown thing. Well, what do you think is coming up right now? They have to have a budget by December 13th. They haven't even had a single meeting, and now they're going on vacation for 2 weeks. And if they don't have that budget by the 13th, and I doubt they will since they haven't had one in 5 years, then they're going to go on vacation for another month and come back just in time for the government shutdown on January 15th. And then, of course, you have the whole debt ceiling thing that was pushed out to February 7th. So all those uncertainties that were there in September are there now. And by the way, has anyone seen what the world economy looks like? Did anyone realize that GDP in Europe was 0.1% last quarter? And that the ECB lowered rates last week and said that they now are considering negative interest rates in QE. And that in Japan, that their GDP was with a negative deflator, by the way, 0.4%. And now they're talking about more QE. And the numbers that come out in this country, 9 out of 10 of them are terrible. So to the point that on Thanksgiving, every retailer is going to stay open, and it's been the worst earnings season, the third quarter of any earnings season in like 3 or 4 years. So no, I mean, why anyone would believe that there's going to be all of a sudden tapering, especially with rates moving up, not down, is beyond me. And again, that's just That's just propaganda to keep saying that term. And again, it's kind of silly because by talking about tapering, all they're doing is pushing interest rates higher, which makes things worse. So I still believe that tapering is an absolute impossibility, and I'm not worried at all. And frankly, I don't consider Bitcoin a salt in the wound. It's annoying to hear people talk about it all the time as if it's replacing gold, but the fact is, it is a trend of a promising trend of people starting to think of alternative currencies other than the fiat dollars and euros, etc. And in time, when the manipulation ends, gold and silver will do exactly what Bitcoins are doing, except gold and silver have thousands of years of history behind them, and they have intrinsic value.
Well, they do, and what we should be talking about, and maybe our next call should be titled this, a currency collapse event, because that is what we're talking about. That's what's on the horizon. They can't taper. They won't taper. And I guess the reason I say it's a salt in the wound is that gold and silver have not enjoyed the expansion in price that they should based on all the money printing. And it's because of the propaganda. It's because of the talk about tapering that will never come. And the market just never I guess the market really is just never allowed to realize reality because of this heavy manipulation. That's why we haven't seen the run in the physical silver price that we ought to be seeing, because of the manipulation that everybody talks about, which of course Jeffrey Christian denies.
Well, that's right, because Bitcoin at this point can't take the system down if it goes higher in price. For most people, it's just amusing. I mean, yeah, they had the hearings in the Senate, and make no mistake, those hearings were very, very cantankerous. Calling virtual currencies people terrorists and stuff. I mean, they're not going to let up. The government is not going to let these things go. But the point is, at this point, it doesn't change the world if Bitcoin goes higher in price. But I assure you, if gold was back up toward its highs, and I'm not just talking about in dollars, but in all currencies, as we've seen throughout the last few years, it would cause a crazy global reaction. It would cause fear. It would cause a talk of the end of currencies and money printing. So yeah, they have to try to hold it down. But in the process, all they've done is accelerate the ultimate collapse because all the physical is being drained, and the production is going to really start to come down soon because we're below the cost of production.
Well, as this interview is being released, Andy, Thanksgiving is upon us, and I just want to wish everybody who's listening a happy Thanksgiving. I hope that everybody's families are happy and healthy. I know this is a challenging environment for libertarians, for constitutional-minded folks, for Christians. It's a challenging environment for people who are unemployed. It's a challenging environment in general for millions of Americans, and I just want to wish everybody a heartfelt happy Thanksgiving, and a happy Thanksgiving to you and your beautiful family, Andy. I know you have a young one that's arrived in your house recently. What are you thankful for?
Oh, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I mean, the simple things in life, the family, the friends. I love what I do and helping people, and as you do. And yeah, for Thanksgiving, my best wishes to everyone, and another wish: don't go to Kmart and Walmart and Best Buy. Stay home with your family.
That's right. Just say no to Black Friday, folks. Another marketing ruse that none of us support, nor will we take part in, nor should we, especially when they farmed all those jobs out to China and they bring it back and they want to sell us trinkets. It's hard to believe, Andy. It's hard to believe that people would actually stand out in line in the cold in the middle of the night to get those Chinese trinkets. Isn't that shocking to you still?
Yeah, well, that's America. That's what it's turned into. It's sad.
All right, Andy. Well, tell people how they can get in touch with you guys over at Miles Franklin.
Sure, we've been a bullion dealer for 24 years. We can be reached anytime, 800-822-8080. Remember, our blog is written free every day at milesfranklin.com, and I could be reached at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
Yeah, it seems to me, guys, a much better holiday gift this year might be a few ounces of physical silver. Better that than a $9 toaster from Walmart made in China. But Andy, thanks again for your time. We always do appreciate it, and happy holidays.
You too.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, my friend. Have a good rest of the day.
All right, you too. Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.